and welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I am your host for this Book Chat Thursday, W.D. Foster Graham, the book review editor for Insight News. And here on The Conversation with Al McFarlane, we have stimulating, informative, robust, and inspiring conversation from all aspects of the African and African American diaspora. Now, we have currently surpassed 1,400 subscribers, and we are shooting for 2,000. So, if you like our content, you enjoy and appreciate it, definitely like, share, and subscribe to this channel and share that with your network. Now, today, on Book Chat Thursday, we have a performing artist to share this conversation. He is an independent hip hop artist, educator, and entrepreneur from South Minneapolis. As a rising star out of the Midwest, he's released 4 full-length LPs, 2 EPs, received the McKnight Foundation Fellowship in 2018, and has toured nationally and internationally with legendary rap acts like Atmosphere and Brother Ali. And as an MC, he was named the best hip hop artist in 2012 by the City Pages for his highly personal content, artistic duality, bravado, and lyricism. Now, his work has been recognized by Chuck D, MaLLy Love, and Sway Calloway from Sway in the Morning. He serves as an artist career consultant with Springboard for the Arts, Reverb open mic host with True Art Speaks, and a teaching artist with Compass Arts. And in 2024, he released his latest album, The Sweetest of It All, offering an intimate look at his Blackness, sobriety, masculinity, and personal growth. So it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce my brother, MaLLy.
Good day. Greetings. How you doing, Mr. WD?
Yeah, excellent. Glad that this spring is sticking around. How about you?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well. It feels like summertime here in the Twin Cities. It's already hitting 80, 85. It's heating up.
Well, that works for me. Since we have snow for like 5 months out of the year, I'll take any spring day I can get.
Yes, sir. I agree with you 100% on that.
So, MaLLy, as a fellow Southsider, tell us a little bit more about how you grew up.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here on Insight in this conversation. I really appreciate it. So yeah, Southsider, born and raised, born in 1986. And Southside is a special place to me. Grew up, essentially was raised by my grandmother and mom in a few different neighborhoods in South Minneapolis. And originally, they came from Memphis, Tennessee in the early 80s. So they had been up here, I want to say, since the early mid 80s. And my grandma moved up here first. And then I think after my mom had left the military for, a short stint, had moved to the Twin Cities as well. Because I think when you're closer to family or when you have some access to family, it's easier to navigate when you're in a new environment. So this space, the Midwest, was much different than what they had all kind of grown up and been a part of. So I grew up with my grandma and my mom, essentially kind of going back and forth between both places. Some weekends I was at my grandma's house, some weekends I was at home. During the week I'm at home, just being raised essentially by them. And even though we lived in the Midwest and over South, a lot of the values, both cultural, spiritually, identity-wise, were instilled in me as a young man. So usually when you meet someone who may be an elder or even a little bit older than you, typically say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. You hold doors for people. Just a lot of those values that you lead with respect and love. So that was a lot of the ways in which I was I was raised was through those two individuals. And then obviously my uncles were in close proximity as well. So a lot of their upbringing and experiences rubbed off on me as well. And then also went to school in South Minneapolis and lived in the different neighborhoods like Powderhorn, Phillips, the short stint in the, I want to say, Whittier neighborhood, Longfellow, and Kingfield. So that's where I spent most of my time as a young person growing up. So, but Fourth Avenue is definitely, I think, where our connection went through conversation came up. We both spent time growing up on Fourth Avenue. So that's where I'm from.
I know that's right, because I know with me, yeah, I'm that baby boomer, and they say my family grew up right there. My grandmother was on 36th and 4th Avenue. The library is at the end of the block. Central High School was 2 blocks up from where we lived, and 2 blocks down was the heart of the South of what I know South Side, 38th Street and 4th Avenue South.
Wow. Yeah. So I was on 43rd. I was on 43rd Street and 4th Avenue
Mhm.
from about 97 up until about 2011 or so. And then before that, 31st and Blaisdell, where it used to,
Mm,
the apartment complexes used to be called Finley Place.
right.
And then since then, they've changed to Albright townhomes. And so it's been fascinating seeing how the neighborhood has changed significantly. And then there's certain sections and pockets that have kind of remained the same. So yeah.
Most definitely. So tell me, so who were some other persons that were mentors to you that inspired you as you were growing up? Now, your family, of course, of course, family. You have those that have those values passed down, but now other mentors.
Yeah, I would say coming up, a lot of the folks in the neighborhood. A lot of the folks in the neighborhood, some of my best friends as parents coming up were mentors during that time. A lot of people within the Black community, as I knew it, were church going people. So a
Mhm.
lot of the wisdom and information that they were sharing with you came from the church. Essentially, we learned how to pray at an early age. um, so a lot of those values came from neighborhood friends as parents, through the church, and just even folks who ran the maybe businesses that were in close proximity. And even if it wasn't a direct mentorship or guidance, it was an indirect kind of mentorship or guidance that you saw from afar. So maybe you learned certain lessons or certain words or certain ways to carry yourself from other people who were in close proximity. You saw people getting up and going to work. You saw some people who were, had dreams of playing basketball, and you just learned the ways of the neighborhood and how you dealt with each other. But specifically, it was definitely through other friends as parents, their grandparents, the church, even, so many years as being a young person, learning how to take the bus to and from the barbershop. So,
Mhm.
if you had a barber that you saw on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, whether it was all hair, which is still active, and still an active function in barbershop, by Kevin Johnson and Jamel Graves on the South Side. And then, for those who know, Eddie's Barbershop was also
Yeah.
a pillar on Fourth Avenue.
Yes.
So Eddie's was great too. Eddie's was even great. Even if you weren't looking for a haircut, they would have donuts on Saturday. So if you went in there on Saturday early, they'd have a box full of glazed donuts.
Mm.
You sitting there long enough with the TV playing music or a game, and while 3 or 4 different barbers are having a conversation, you just listening and soaking up all that they're different. You learn from a young age what barbershop talk is and what their perspective is, what new song came out, or what the perspective is on a movie, or you just you soak up so much about. And these are older gentlemen too than me, because I'm 9, 10, 11, and 12 at this time. So I'm just learning what's going on in their world. And these are people who are 10 to 20 years older than me at the time. So you look up to those people.
Yes, you do. Because even I think I'm 72 now, and I can remember being at Eddie's to get my afro blown out. So yes, I was there too. I know my parents just lived a couple of blocks over. Uh, Literally watched the freeway go up. Literally.
Wow. So they were there from the very beginning.
Yes, they were. So yeah, you saw times when all that was a vacant lot, when all those houses were gone, and so then watching a freeway go through the community and stuff, and seeing what 94 did to Rondo, 35W did to Southside Minneapolis. But that's another story.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
And if I can say, being someone who, when I was growing up, feeling as if that was maybe before my time, it almost seems as if you don't, it's almost like it's a lost piece of history unless you are told by other people or if it's directly given to you.
Mhm.
But had anyone not said anything, if you're just coming into the world, let's just say now, if you're born in, let's say 2010 or if you're in your 10 or 15,
Mhm.
not going through that or seeing that and really understanding the ripple effects that had on the community, always makes me wonder sometimes, what my perspective would have been like had I been around to see something like that, or to really feel directly what the impacts were. So I always respect the people who pass the knowledge, on to the current generations, and so that we don't forget how things were or how they maybe impacted us.
Yeah, that is true. I think it's a lot of what our no our responsibilities are, is that in turn that we pay it forward and stuff, because
Yes, sir.
you and I, we are walking history. And so as important as, as the generations that are following us, that I know to make sure that history lives within them.
Mhm.
So now, as a performing artist, what was your inspiration to follow the road to where you are as such an artist? Because I appreciate the accolades that I have seen from you, and I said, hat tip. So where was your start? What was that that put you on the road?
Yeah, what was the spark? It To keep it as short as possible, it again, I think it was just seeing all of the different energies and vibes in the neighborhood. So growing up in the Seward neighborhood and then transitioning over to the kind of the Kingfield Blaisdell neighborhood, for those that are familiar,
Mhm.
that was that time frame from the ages 5 and 6 all the way up until about 12 and 13 is, I think, when I think back to those times, those were the formative years of really putting your ear to the stereo of putting together what is everyone listening to. So seeing from afar, a lot of times music not only is music something that is considered to be a cool. So if you're someone who's considered cool in the neighborhood, you have a certain level of how do I say it, influence on
Mhm.
what other people may listen to. So if some of the older kids listen to a certain artist or a certain group, me as a younger person was curious to know, oh, what is everybody bobbing their head to? What are they listening to? What are they enjoying? So then you feel like, oh, if I get this tape and then I can be in, it's a conversation piece. So a lot of times it just came through first it started off being a fan of the music in general. And it started not even just from the neighborhood, but it started in the house.
Mhm.
And when I say started in the house, it started in a sense from, again, being a fan, from listening to the music. So nobody, was playing an instrument. Nobody was a drummer or, a pianist, or played the cello or the saxophone or anything like that. It was just being a straight up diehard fan of music. And a lot of the music that was getting played in the house as early as I can remember was a lot of stuff from the 80s. If you know Gwen Guthrie,
Yes. Ain't no
Uh,
going on but the rent.
yeah, I think there's another group called Loose Ends, uh, uh, Soul to Soul. Think about Terrence Trent D'Arby, George Michael, obviously Jackson 5, James Brown, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, all of the usual suspects. Angela Bofield. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. Keith Sweat. That
Yeah.
was all of that was getting played in the house, and a lot of it was these artists that were being played were in their 20s, early mid 20s. But for somebody who's 5 and 6 and 7, you think that's so far away from where you are in age and time.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking these are like really grown, super mature people. They're superstars. They can dance. They're flashy. This is before you know anything about the business, but something about what they sing, how they're singing, and they look like you.
Yes.
They look like you. You want to be a part of that. That's the conversation piece because then it's like, okay, if I like this song, you go to school, you bring it up to a friend. Hey, did you listen to this particular song or this music? And that starts the conversation. And a lot of times that was also what started a lot of friendships. But it was a lot of the music that was getting played in the house that inspired me. But I deeply remember Michael Jackson's Beat It, all his videos. It was really the videos. It was Bad, Beat It, and Thriller that just made me want to use my voice or dance and I used to dance on a coffee table,
Hey.
when my mom wasn't looking, because
Uh-huh.
if I got caught with my shoes on, my slip-ons on the coffee table trying to spin in a circle and I might catch some wreck behind that, but it was those moments initially that planted that seed, and then once the time transition and hip hop came into the fold, with groups like Criss Cross in '92. That was a really young group that Jermaine Dupri had been essentially managing and producing for back in the early '90s, and they were a really young, group and young duo. So there was another, again, the connectivity of their age isn't far in proximity, it's close, and then they're younger and they're Black artists too, and they dress cool. They were over some really interesting production and stuff that was just catchy. And they were mainstream rap artists. So it just really stood out to me. I remember that being my first tape that was bought for me as a gift, was a Criss Cross tape.
Ah.
And with that being the first tape, I feel like the seeds continue to just, you plant one seed and then it just continues to grow and evolve as you age, as you evolve, as your life experiences change. You start to grow out of certain styles and things, and then you transition into other styles and other things as you get older. And the neighborhood, again, whatever other people are listening to, you want to feel like you're a part of that. So you start maybe taking on different artists and giving other artists a chance in order to be a part of that small kind of ecosystem or microcosm of music and hip hop. And then it transitioned into, at some point, me wanting to write. In high school, I wanted to rap. And I really, when I think back on it, it was because I was probably doing a lot of deep reflection on, I don't really like to play sports. That's not my thing, but I love film. I love good movies, even bad movies. I just love movies. But I love film, but good music, and just giving music a chance. Because as I indicated to you, I had such a wide palette of pop music, soul music, funk music, rock music. So my palette was just, I think, refined. So I found myself in high school wanting to explore my voice and, again, be a part of that. And then the craft of freestyle rap and battle also was something that came along, and that really planted another seed that really made me say, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. Because again, it ties back to those same things. It's like, oh, what are they saying? How do they look?
Yeah.
What's the response that they're getting from people? And then what's their story behind it? Like, what's their style, or what makes them them? So that was like, for me, it was an exploration of wanting to find my voice.
Yeah. And definitely it is appreciated, most appreciated. And now speaking of rap and hip hop, one of the reasons I wanted to show, because I'm reminded that rap and hip hop are variations of spoken word. Now, what I like to ask you to, because oftentimes it's important to know the history behind it. So, would you share your knowledge of the history of rap and hip hop?
Yeah, when I think about the history of rap and hip hop, I think hip hop is going to be 52 this year. So if we think back to August 11th, 1973, I want to say is what we documented as the day hip hop was born. And
Mhm.
how, when you think about us, when I say us, I'm saying Black folks, folks from the Caribbean, folks from the island, post-slave trade, just all of those different elements of black people, African
Mhm.
people, which whatever quote unquote box you fit into, but just Black people. We think about how resourceful and creative and magical we are as a people, how we can take one thing or a few different things and turn it into this other thing.
Mm.
And how, to me, during that time, personally, I always felt like hip hop was a branch off of, it's essentially the next child in the timeline from blues, jazz, soul. It was on the heels of disco. If you listen to the production, the outfits people were wearing at the time, when you think about Grandmaster Flash and the
Yeah.
Furious Five, when you think about Sugar Hill Gang,
Mhm.
you think about all of those groups and how it sounded. It sounds like hip hop, flow wise, delivery wise, but then there's elements to it that still feel like it's coming out of a different era, or one sound into the next.
Mhm.
But again, we're talking Black men, Black women, and hip hop not only is the art of the MC or the rapper, but it's the turntablist or the DJ who really set things off with the break beats, uh, which were pulled from older music from the earlier 1900s. Then you have what we call b-boys and b-girls, who were breaking, who did popping, waving. For folks who may think of it as cardboard box footwork, spinning on your head,
Mhm.
all of the super talent that it takes to do that. And
Mhm.
then the folks who were visual artists or graph writers, who would tag their names on trains, buildings, many things like that, and got their voice, got their message out through that. And it was, to me, telling to really, when I think about it, it really just comes through expression. It's really just another way of expression, Black expression, through the voice, through visual art, through dance, and through music, essentially, for the last 50 plus years at this point now.
Mhm.
And even from then, it's evolved so many times, several times over. We're talking early 70s, early 80s to the 90s, early 2000s, all the way up to now. And it spread from, we're talking the East Coast and the West Coast. The Midwest at one point had its own sound. Down South had its own sound. And I feel like each region has had its own moment to kind of shine. But the East Coast is where it was really, in the Bronx, was really just essentially the birthing place. Bronx, Brooklyn, Harlem, Queens. So many different folks have come out of there, and it just spread like wildfire. And it's influenced the world in so many ways that we know, and a lot that we don't know. so
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, I think hip hop is definitely something that has come out 50 plus years, and it's just a form of Black expression and resiliency, and our story, which you and I talk about a lot, is the story, the voice. Um, so if you think back to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, just the song, The Message, he starts off telling a story, broken glass everywhere, Melly Mel, like that, simple but effective.
Yes.
Mhm. To tell the story of the times.
There you go, and they say thank you for sharing that, because it's say not everybody knows the history, and it's important to retain that history when it, as we see where we are now from when from back in the day. So that being said, I have a question for you regarding your latest album. So why did you feel the need to honor your blackness, sobriety, masculinity, and personal growth so much on your latest album, The Sweetest of It All?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I think, kind of going back to the voice and what your story is. I think for a long time, I had found myself in this space of maybe tackling overall as a body of work, maybe tackling one of those things or some small element of it. But I feel like with this particular album, I felt the need to make a body of work that was unapologetically black or unapologetically nappy, as I say, in the sense of taking a so-called negative and turning it into a positive, and just shining a light on those elements, because I think a lot of times we deny that gut feeling or that voice. We deny our own personal flow. And that's a word that we use a lot in hip hop, is flow, when it comes to how you deliver your verse and how you're rhyming and how you're speaking and saying what you say. And I think even with us personally, we deny ourselves of what our flow is. We sometimes go against that because we worry about what other people on the outside of this experience, how they're going to digest or
Mhm.
understand or misunderstand what it is that we're saying, or we get into a comparison mode and say, oh, such and such is saying this and they sold millions of records, that's not me, so I'm just going to stay over here and do this thing. And I think for me, I wanted to do a project that didn't shy away from that flow or from that voice or from any of those stories. I wanted people to know, first and foremost, um, who I am, what's made me who I am over the years, and continuing to uh, essentially help me evolve and mature into the man that I am today. And then also just talking about the process of what it is to go through something, but also like how do you not only, if something breaks, how do you put it back together? If How do you go through, and then how do you also let go and make room for new things, specifically in terms of sobriety, intentionally deciding to live in a sober lifestyle, um, to be more sharp, to be more on point, to be more in tune with what I think the creator is saying to me, what I'm being inspired by, not missing any details, and just sharing that change is great, change is good, change is okay. Change brings out, I think it might be challenging, but I do think change has the tendency and the capability to bring the best out of all of us. I really do. And I think it's good to share that, and take those risks. Sometimes change involves risk a lot of times too. And I think there is a little bit of fear of doing that, or following again what your gut is saying is, and not forcing it, being yourself 100%. And whoever hears this record or hears this project, I want them to get as accurate of an assessment of who I am in this point in time. So I feel like through all of those different aspects, I don't want it to just be something for the moment and saying like, this is my super conscious black album, I'm focusing on this, I'm trying to market this, I want to market that. It's like, no, this is really my life. This is really who I am. This is really where I come from. These are the people that inspired me. These are the people that helped grow me. These are the experiences that I went through in order to become this person. Because I think we have a tendency to just give people the final product a lot of times, and we skip over. It's like going to the end of the book You know, as you as an author can relate to this, trying to go to
Oh
the
yeah.
end of the, trying to go to the end of the movie, but skip the last hour and a half. You know, you want all the spoilers or the cliff notes. And to me, there's so much in between. And I wanted that album to represent that particular process from track 1 all the way to track 14.
And that being said, hey, it's all about, like my columns, my weekly column says sharing our stories. Because the thing is, MaLLy, as I always say, if we don't share our stories, someone else will, and it won't be accurate. So my hat tip to you for sharing your story and the sweetest of it all.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So now, in tandem with that, what's your process as both the MC, the songwriter, the host, the consultant, the educator? What does that look like? Because you give them this kind of parts of it when you're talking about your album. So please elaborate.
Yes, sir. I would say, being someone who wears many hats, it does take a level. I'll go back to the term. It takes a level of fearlessness and trying different things and really not being afraid to go deep within yourself. I think when it comes to the music writing process, I think it does come from a place of what is the conversation that's coming up lyrically. What is and a lot of times the music informs that. So I for me personally, I've always typically, sourced or stockpiled, several beats or several pieces of instrumentation at a time, and maybe sit with 2 or 3 of them, or out of 20, there may be 7 that I really love. And then take those 7, sit with those 7 for a while, and out of those 7, there might be one that I'm really just driven towards to spend time with. And I always just look at songwriting, to me, always as a conversation. What's the conversation that I'm looking to have, or what is the conversation that maybe I haven't had a chance to have as a writer, as an artist? So what are the things that I want to tap into? But the process is really just tapping into some of those deeper things, or some of those deeper topics and concepts, and again, just letting it flow, and not being afraid to go. I don't want to say, but to a degree, kind of going almost into character in a sense, because the way that you and I are talking right now is not going to be the same way that when I hear music, I'm not going to communicate with the music the same way. The same way that if I'm working with an artist as a consultant, I'm going to have all of the information that I need on this particular person, as far as maybe what their origin story is, what they're currently working on, what are they looking for, what do they need help with, and being able to then go deep again into this bag of what are my experiences that I've had with these things. Because then there's going to be some of the personal opinionated things, but then there's also going to be the life experiences that also inform that. And how do you communicate with people, um, and communicating from a place of not only just knowledge through the textbook, but also lived experience that you can share to make it even more real. So when you deal with or work with someone, you're talking from a place of being someone who's toured, or someone who's performed, and someone who's put out music, and someone who's promoted themselves. So you're coming with this whole wealth of knowledge. Which ones make the most sense for the conversation? So it's like having an arsenal or a toolkit. And then with hosting, that's a form of performance. It is, again, you're in character while walking a thin line of being yourself as well. You want to have for me, my personal style is being warm, welcoming, down to earth, inviting, and just paying attention to everything that's going on in the room. So really paying attention to the sonics of the room. Are people in a good space? Where am I at personally? What's the type of style I want to bring to the room and to the space? How do I want to make people feel? And that's usually how I look at songwriting as well. It's like, what is the emotion or the vibe or the frequency that I want people to be on when they listen to this? So all of those types of skills tie into songwriting, live performance, consulting, as well as um, hosting and consulting. So yes.
Yeah. And, you know, it's all an ongoing process.
Yeah. So you wear many different hats.
Yes. As one who's doing that, I can definitely relate.
Yes, sir.
So now now you've been a hip hop artist for like 15 plus years.
Mhm.
So where do you go or what do you do to remain inspired and creative and even in the fact that you do wear many hats?
Yes, sir. You know, for me, over the years, I think is being in life, like really, really being fully submerged in life. And I feel as if inspiration is all over the place. I think you could find the inspiration from a piece of work that you did years ago. You may say, "Man, I'm looking for a certain conversation. I feel like I kind of had it, but let me go back to some older work to see how I was sounding and things that because I always go back to my older work and just review and just listen to see what was my delivery like on this particular song that I really love, that also people really love themselves. What was I talking about? Not to copy it, but just to see just to kind of recall where was I at in that space when I wrote this particular song. Was I in a good space? Was I in a somewhere in the middle? Was I in a low point? And then just able to just live. I think really giving myself a chance to live and not be held hostage in the studio. Just I gotta make 5 songs a day. I gotta make, but really just getting to the place where I'm really living life and letting life provide the information and plant those seeds over time. So whether it's going to see a new film or rewatch old films, it's very possible a documentary or an interview with someone may spark an idea or a certain concept. Even just conversation tends to spark a lot of the inspiration or to want to remain creative. And just, I think that there's still much to say because I'm still alive. I think that's the thing that I tap into a lot too is the fact that, if you're alive and living, you have so much to pull from. You still have so much to pull from, and even just interacting and seeing what other artists near and far are doing also inspires me as well. Just even seeing people win and do great things inspires me because then it's like a healthy level of competition. It's like, okay, they did great. I also, again, I want to be a part or somehow make something that is part of that conversation. Um, and trying my best not to spend too much time on social media because that's definitely been something that has kind of distracted me a little bit. I get more distracted than inspired with social media. Social media is kind of like a pastime, something that you tune out on, at least for me. Whereas for me, when I'm literally being able to just live in the moment and just be present, I'm really able to see where I'm at, how I'm feeling, what I want to say. Or if I don't have anything to say at all, I don't force it either.
Well, I can relate to so far as what you have in you creatively because as an author, I still have several novels in me. Just never dreamed that for me, when I wrote my first novel, that there would be 6 or 7 more that are going to follow it, and still more on there. So that creative thing is, it's there. It's
Yes, sir.
definitely there. And speaking about being there, and since it was a serendipity for us to meet at this particular venue, tell our viewers about Reverb.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So Reverb Open Mic that Mr. W.D. Foster Graham is speaking on is a weekly open mic performance series that is fueled by an arts organization that goes by the name of True Art Speaks, headed up and founded by Tish Jones and uh, facilitated and supervised by Desdemona. And then I am the host of Reverb Open Mic that takes place on Thursdays from 6 p.m. Central to 8 p.m. Central in St. Paul at Flavor Cafe at 623 University Avenue West in the heart of Frogtown, corner of Dale and University. So it's a space where people get a chance to build, connect, engage with one another through the forms of conversation, spoken word performance, hip hop performance. We've had some folks come through and do short dance routines, individuals who come through and share excerpts or segments of their book if they're storytellers. We've had people come through and do community segments, but it's really an open mic that gives artists of all kinds a space to share their work, share their story, share their voice, to build, heal, and just grow a community of artists. And it's a healing space. It really is. It's a space. It's a multi-functional space. It's multi-generational. It's all ages. It's free of charge, so it's accessible. It's on the bus line, and it's it's multiracial, but there are many times where it feels very black, all black, by the lineup, the folks that attend, and we welcome all. We welcome all to the space, and it's a beautiful space that we've held court in, and it's been going strong for the last 13 plus years, and we've been in a few different locations. But Flavor Cafe is currently where Reverb Open Mic happens. And it's a space too, when you perform, you get 6 minutes. And it's a little bit different than most open mics, because after you're done performing, you get a chance to opt in for feedback. And with that feedback, I always encourage performers to be specific in what it is that they're looking for people to share. However, if people just want general feedback on their piece, whether they want to hear people liked it or what they could work on or improve or change, that is something that takes place as well. And I love it because it's 99.9% of the time, even almost 100% of the time, everyone who shares feedback is always coming from a place of encouragement. It's rooted in love, positivity. It's never from a place of bashing or putting folks down, no matter what the talent level is. We've got people who have been performing and writing for decades, and then we have people who come through and they tell you, this is my first time performing in front of people. And I love having those people in the space all the time, because some people blow your mind. You're like, how long you've only been doing this for how long? And you did that. So I'm always encouraging people to just, as I say, please keep coming back, because I want that to be something that is valued. So yeah, it's a space for people to come and perform and connect as a community. And our welcome table has all this beautiful information that Desdemona, who's a poet, spoken word artist, hip hop artist, and all that, she's there with me as well. We run it, and it's a beautiful experience. Wouldn't you say so, Mr. Graham?
Yes, having been there and stuff, but yes, that's why I encourage. You heard it here, viewers. Come on down, check out Reverb Open Mic. Like I say, those of you who are doing spoken word, you got a story to share. This is a place to do it. This is a venue to do it. So what they say, you take those risks, step on out, and you'll be stepping into, say, a safe healing space to share your story, to share your work, to share whatever the song is that is within you. I say it again. Thursdays from 6 to 8, Flavor Cafe, 623 University Avenue West, St. Paul. That's the place to be. Yeah. Now, in all your work as an artist, as a consultant, host, entrepreneur, educator, what have you learned most recently, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent?
I've learned that, you know, it does pay, it helps as much as possible to really embrace the concept of impermanence and change. Um, because a lot of times the dreams and the things that we want, or how we want things to go, may not always come out or look the way that we thought it would look sometimes. Or maybe the path that we're taking to get to a certain place, it might not be as quick as we thought it was going to be. You just learn that this entire life is a process. This work that we do, this storytelling, this rapping, this release of records and projects, and the hosting, the consultation, it's all a process. It all came through a multitude of experiences. None of this just happened overnight. You didn't get to 6 or 7 different books through, sitting down from one year to the next. And some people are that prolific, but just bear with me, is that in order to, I think, get to a space where you really understand you, your process, how you navigate and move in the world, owning your voice, finding your voice, and expressing it in a way, and how you do your work. That's a process of having some wins, or as they say, taking some losses or lessons, as I call them, and really applying those to the next round of whatever it is that you're doing. But it really comes down to just being open-minded and flexible in how things play. Not always successful in how flexible I am, because when you get married to something, or you're really hard pressed on making and being fixed on something, and you really want it to be a certain way, it can be disappointing. But just being as open minded that if there's a lesson from it, whether regardless if it feels like a loss, if there's a lesson, to me, I still see that as a win, because you still have something to take home with you and make yourself better. Um, and just being a listener. I think listening, not only just to people, but for me, I always say, on the song Black and Gold Genetics off the Sweetest of It All, I say, if you listen closely, the universe is whispering. So it's this idea of if you pay attention to what's going on right in front of you or around you, again, that gut feeling, that vibe, that frequency, a lot of times the answer is typically right there or close enough to you. So being a listener, and also through listening, being able to, that I think makes you better to then lead. It, being a great listener then puts you in and being open to being led too. I think those two things definitely help you become a better leader of yourself, which then I think advertently and inadvertently then spills over into other people. Um, and also just being open, being generous in whatever way that is, whether it be with your time, generous to yourself, and giving back in whatever way that looks like, through advice, through whether it be for the career, life, music, your vocation, not being stingy with who you are. Um, but obviously within reason and within balance. You can't spread yourself too thin, because we know how that is. But a very healthy balance of being generous, being a listener, and being open to change and flexibility of where the tide might take you. Because sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, but we're going somewhere.
Yes, we are. So now I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all of my guests. Is this: what advice would you give to your 13-year-old self from where you are now?
Mm. Um, Yeah, just being in deep reflection about a lot of things over the last, handful of years. Um, I would definitely say don't don't live in fear, essentially. And that it ties back to that concept of not blocking your own flow, and not listening to your gut. Like, listen to your gut and go with that. Listen to that, because I think the gut sometimes it speaks, speaks as clear as day, more than than anybody who's standing next to you or in close proximity. A lot of times, I think we live in fear, and it cuts us off from really thriving and shining. I would tell my 13-year-old self, listen to your gut. What are your dreams? What are you interested in? Go for them. Like step out on faith, um, and not by sight, of what you're seeing. And a little bit of fear or nervousness is okay. I think it's okay to be a little nervous or a little anxious in pursuing something, or trying something and putting yourself out there a little bit more, versus everything's not going to be as controlled and tight and neat and as clean as you want it to be. But um, that would be something I would tell my 13-year-old self. It's like, oh, you want to be in theater, or you want to act, or you want to sing, or try it. You never know. You never say you can't do it until you try it first. Um, so yeah, I would definitely say that.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, so what do you hope to accomplish or see blossom from your performing art, from your music?
Yeah, I really would like to see, even if it's me as the vessel who is, let's say, performing at a show, or headlining a show, or hosting, or I look at all of those opportunities, not even just things that directly impact me, but I want any and all opportunities to hopefully always turn into opportunities for other people. Because for me, I would like to be along with other people. I feel like that's what reverb is. I feel like that's what the artist consultations are. I feel like that's what the music is that it really is a stepping stone to the next thing, in order to bring other people along in some form or fashion, whether it be through sharing information that people needed in order to get their art off the ground, or spark an idea within another person, being the reflection of what a successful independent artist looks like. There's many different ways to do it. So being someone who holds knowledge, but also distributes that information and that knowledge as well, and does it also through action. Because I do think knowledge and action is a form of revolution in a lot of ways. Because it's not just, I have all of this and I'm gonna keep it for myself and I'm gonna benefit, but no, what who would I be not to pass that on to an artist that's either my age or even a little bit older? Because we're all in this space of learning, and if we're all in a space of learning, I think it's on us. If we have something that other people are looking for, we should pass that information and that knowledge on to other people, to make this experience that much better, um, and just that much more fruitful. Because you never know who or what you'll will come from that. So I want all of those experiences to just turn into opportunities for other people, especially other people who I know are hungry and just as curious and interested, and telling their story and changing the world, essentially, in whatever way. Even if it's not on a global level, but if it's even co-located, national, however it looks, there's some little bit of change. We might not see it on a super huge level, but we shouldn't be too worried about quantity and mass. We should definitely be thinking, okay, what's the intention? continuing to inspire people who are intent on just doing great work that inspires other people. And hopefully what they do does the same thing. You know, they say each one teach one, and hopefully just continues to spread that way.
Yeah, that is so true. And when it comes to making, it comes to change and something we do, something my elders often say is bloom where you're planted.
Wow.
Because oftentimes you look, the change can be right there in their own backyard, figuratively speaking.
Yes, sir.
And so, and something I may have mentioned earlier is when we find a way to pay it forward, we're making a difference.
Mm.
So now, for our viewers, where can our viewers, find and purchase your body of work?
Certainly. Thank you so much for asking that question. So for anyone interested in purchasing merch or music or anything that's related to MaLLy, you can head over to MaLLy, MPLS.com. So that's MaLLy, MPLS.com. The Sweetest of It All is available in the form of vinyl, CD, digital formats. And then some of my other bodies of work can also be found on MaLLyMPLS.com, iTunes, Instagram at MaLLyMPLS, things of that nature. So yes, feel free to check in and tap in with me. So yes, we've got vinyl, CDs, and we also have hoodies and t-shirts as well for those who are interested in, supporting the movement, independent musicianship, for the last 15 some years.
Sounds like a plan. So we have a few minutes left. So I'd just like to ask you a few. So what's in the future, projects and so far as your work, that sort of thing?
Yes, sir. So I'm still in the thick of promoting my latest body of work, The Sweetest of It All, produced by DJ and producer Last Word. It's currently based in New Zealand. So I'm pushing that. Really, really beautiful reception. So just continuing to push that in the works of putting together a couple more music videos for that album and from that album. In addition to that, continuing to host Reverb Open Mic, which takes place on Thursdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Flavor Cafe. Reverb Radio that takes place on Fridays from 7 to 8 p.m. on Frogtown Radio. If you're interested in tuning in, hosted by myself and Desdemona. And then just, I do have some other performances that are tentatively potentially being booked, for the summertime, as well as some teaching artist opportunities as well. And then just continuing to push along with, this, small business I've had for, several years now in the distribution world. So yeah, I'm wearing many different hats, and I'm also just hoping that I get a chance to, get at least 1 or 2 trips in, if my schedule allows it. And then also artist consultation work with Springboard for the Arts as well. So that'll definitely be something that'll take up, plenty of my time. So.
Well, hey, you heard it here. So we got about 30 seconds going here. And to have closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts, I just want to say thank you to W.D. Foster Graham, Insight News, Jared for being such a kind and gracious, assistant in getting us situated and into the chat really well. I just want to thank everybody who's a part of fueling this experience and putting everything together, because as I always say, without you, there is no us. I want to thank you for your time, Mr. W.D. Foster Graham, and being so kind, and everyone that supported MaLLy and The Sweetest of It All, and all of the work that me and the folks that are in my community continue to do to push this thing further.
Oh, thank you. This is WD Foster Graham, your host today for Book Chat Thursday and Insight News. And we have as our special guest, performing artist and man of many hats, Renaissance man, MaLLy. So definitely keep your eyes and your ears tuned. And so in the meantime, take care and we'll see you in the next go round.